Chosen one. This message is not appearing in your life by accident. There are moments when heaven goes silent, and there are moments when heaven sounds the alarm. This is one of those moments. Deep inside, you've already felt it, the strange pressure, the unusual dreams, the sudden shifts, the feeling that something is changing around you spiritually. God is trying to get your attention before it's too late. Too many people ignore divine warnings because they look ordinary at first. They brush them off as coincidence, emotion, or fear. But every major turning point in life begins with a whisper from God. The danger is not always physical. Sometimes the greatest danger is missing the instruction that was meant to protect your future, your peace, your purpose, and your destiny. Chosen one, if this message reaches your eyes today, it may be because God is trying to pull you away from a path that leads to confusion, betrayal, delay, or spiritual destruction. There are people around you whose intentions are hidden. There are battles you cannot see with human eyes. And there are decisions you are about to make that could either elevate your life or deeply wound your spirit. Do not ignore the conviction in your heart. Remember this moment. One day you may look back and realize this was the warning that changed everything. God does not warn those he has abandoned. He warns the ones he still has a plan for. And if you are hearing this now, heaven is telling you one thing clearly. Stay alert, stay prayerful, and do not miss what God is trying to show you. The warning came before the fall. God has always been a God of warning before judgment, correction before destruction, and mercy before consequence. Throughout history, heaven never allowed disaster to arrive without first sending signs, instructions, or messengers. Before the flood covered the earth, Noah was warned and told to prepare the ark. People laughed at him, ignored him, and treated the warning like madness until the rain finally came. Before fire fell on Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot was warned to leave immediately and not look back. God always gives his chosen people an opportunity to move before danger arrives. Chosen one, many times the warning does not come in dramatic ways. Sometimes it comes as an uneasy feeling in your spirit. Sometimes it comes through repeated disappointments, strange dreams, constant delays, or a deep conviction you cannot explain. Other times, God uses people, messages, or unexpected situations to get your attention. The danger is that many people ignore these warnings because they appear small in the beginning. But spiritual danger rarely announces itself loudly at first. What you ignore today can become the battle you cry about tomorrow. That relationship you were warned about, that environment you were told to leave, that compromise you kept entertaining, all of it can slowly lead you away from peace, purpose, and protection. God's warnings are not meant to control you. They are meant to preserve you. Sometimes God delays certain blessings because he is trying to protect you from what you cannot yet see. What feels like rejection may actually be divine rescue. What feels like delay may actually be God blocking destruction from entering your life prematurely. The most dangerous thing a person can do is become spiritually numb. When conviction disappears, destruction becomes easier. That is why you must stay sensitive to God's voice in this season. Pray for discernment. Pay attention to repeated signs. Listen when your spirit feels troubled. Because when God warns you before the fall, it is not punishment, it is proof that he still loves you enough to protect your future. Not every voice around you is sent by God. Chosen one of the greatest dangers in this season is believing that everyone around you carries good intentions. Just because someone speaks kindly does not mean they are aligned with your destiny. The enemy often works through distraction, confusion, manipulation, and false comfort. That is why discernment is no longer optional, it is necessary for survival. Many people enter your life looking supportive on the surface, while secretly draining your energy, weakening your focus, and pulling you away from your spiritual assignment. Some people celebrate your presence but resent your calling. Others want access to your light without respecting the God who placed it inside you. Not every hand extended toward you is meant to help you rise. Some hands are designed to slow you down. God may already be exposing certain individuals around you through strange behavior, broken trust, inconsistency, jealousy, or confusion. Pay attention to what people produce in your spirit. Some conversations leave you inspired and peaceful, while others leave you anxious, exhausted, and spiritually heavy. Energy does not lie. Discernment notices what appearances try to hide. This is why you must stop ignoring red flags simply because you want peace or companionship. The wrong voice can delay your purpose for years. One wrong relationship, friendship, or influence can pull you away from the path God prepared for you. Many chosen ones did not fall because they lacked power. They fell because they listened to the wrong voices. Even in the Bible, Adam listened to Eve instead of God. Samson listened to Delilah and lost his strength. Rehoboam ignored wise counsel and destroyed a kingdom. Wrong voices have always carried dangerous consequences. In this season, God is teaching you to test every spirit and every influence carefully. Not everybody deserves access to your mind, your emotions, or your future. Some people are assignments. Others are distractions disguised as blessings. Ask God for discernment strong enough to recognize truth even when deception looks attractive, because your destiny is too valuable to place in the hands of voices that were never sent by God. Your spirit has been feeling the shift. Chosen one, the pressure you've been feeling lately is not random. The sudden emotional heaviness, the strange dreams, the restless nights, the feeling that something around you has changed spiritually, these are often signs that a shift is taking place. Before major changes happen in the physical world, they are usually sensed first in the spirit. Your soul can detect movement long before your eyes understand what is happening. Many chosen ones ignore these feelings because they cannot logically explain them. But not everything spiritual can be understood with the mind alone. Sometimes God allows your spirit to feel discomfort because He is trying to prepare you for what is coming next. The anxiety may not be fear, it may be discernment. The isolation may not be rejection, it may be protection. The confusion around certain people may actually be revelation. There are seasons when heaven begins separating you from environments, habits, and relationships that can no longer go where God is taking you. That shift often feels uncomfortable because growth always requires transition. You may notice that things you once enjoyed no longer satisfy you. Conversations feel empty. Certain places feel spiritually heavy. People you once trusted suddenly feel distant or unfamiliar. This is not always loss. Sometimes it is divine repositioning. The enemy also attacks heavily when he senses elevation approaching. Spiritual warfare often intensifies before breakthrough. That is why you must not panic during this season. The pressure is not proof that God left you. It may actually be proof that your purpose is getting closer. Pay attention to what your spirit has been trying to tell you. God speaks through peace, conviction, discernment, dreams, and spiritual sensitivity. Do not silence those inner warnings just because others cannot understand them. This is the season to pray more deeply, move more carefully, and listen more closely. Because when your spirit feels the shift, heaven may be preparing you for a new level, a hidden battle, or a divine redirection that could change your life forever. Delayed obedience can become disobedience. Chosen one, one of the most dangerous things you can do is hear God clearly and still postpone your response. Many people believe partial obedience or delayed obedience is harmless, but in the spiritual realm, hesitation can carry serious consequences. When God gives an instruction, it is often connected to timing, protection, and destiny. What seems like waiting a little longer to you may actually become disobedience in the eyes of heaven. God does not speak casually. Every instruction carries purpose. When He tells you to move, let go, stay away, forgive, pray, or prepare, it is because He already sees what is ahead. Your future is visible to Him, even when it is hidden from you. Delaying obedience can place you outside the protection that came with the instruction. Think about Jonah. God told him to go to Nineveh, but he delayed and ran in the opposite direction. That delay led to confusion, storms, and suffering that could have been avoided. Many chosen ones today are battling unnecessary pain simply because they ignored what God already told them to do, months or even years ago. Sometimes, obedience feels uncomfortable because it requires sacrifice. God may ask you to leave people you love, walk away from unhealthy environments, or surrender habits that feel familiar. But comfort has destroyed many destinies. The longer you stay attached to what God told you to release, the harder your spiritual journey becomes. Delayed obedience also creates spiritual weakness. Every time you ignore conviction, your sensitivity to God's voice becomes weaker. Eventually, people stop hearing clearly because they trained themselves to resist divine instruction. That is why immediate obedience matters. In this season, stop asking God for more signs when He already gave you the answer. Stop delaying the move you know you must make. Heaven may be waiting on your response before the next door opens. Because sometimes the breakthrough, protection, and elevation you've been praying for are all connected to one simple thing: your willingness to obey God without delay. The enemy attacks chosen ones differently. Chosen one, the warfare around your life is not ordinary because your calling is not ordinary. The enemy does not waste energy attacking people who have no spiritual impact. The intensity of the battles you face is often connected to the greatness of the purpose God placed inside you. There is something valuable about your destiny, your voice, your influence, and your future that the enemy wants to stop before it fully manifests. That is why your struggles often feel deeper than what others understand. You may have experienced betrayal without warning, delays that made no sense, sudden opposition, emotional exhaustion, spiritual heaviness, or repeated attacks the moment you begin making progress. These are not always random events. Sometimes they are targeted distractions designed to discourage you from stepping into your assignment. The enemy studies patterns. He attacks when you are close to breakthrough, when your faith begins growing stronger, or when God is preparing to elevate you. Many chosen ones mistake spiritual warfare for failure, when in reality, it is confirmation that movement is happening in the spirit. Resistance often increases when purpose is near. Notice how many biblical figures were attacked before fulfilling their calling. Joseph was betrayed before becoming a ruler. David was hunted before becoming king. Jesus was tempted heavily before beginning his ministry. Great purpose always attracts opposition because darkness fears what your obedience could become. The enemy also attacks chosen ones mentally. Fear, doubt, confusion, insecurity, and isolation are some of his strongest weapons. If he cannot destroy your destiny directly, he will try to exhaust your mind until you quit on yourself. That is why protecting your thoughts and spirit is critical in this season. But remember this: the attack would not be so intense if there was nothing powerful inside you. The pressure is revealing the value of your calling. God would not allow warfare around your life unless He had already placed strength within you to survive it. So do not panic when opposition rises. Pray harder. Stay spiritually alert. Because the battle around you may actually be proof that heaven is preparing you for something far greater than you imagined. God is trying to save you from hidden traps. Chosen one, not everything that looks good is good for you. Some doors appear attractive on the surface, but secretly carry destruction behind them. One of the greatest acts of God's love is not just blessing you, it is protecting you from traps you cannot yet see. Many times, what you call disappointment is actually divine protection, working quietly in your favor. There are traps disguised as relationships, opportunities, friendships, success, and quick solutions. The enemy rarely attacks with obvious darkness. He often uses attractive distractions that slowly pull you away from your purpose, peace, and spiritual alignment. That is why discernment is more valuable than appearances. Sometimes God blocks certain connections because He knows the pain they would eventually bring into your life. Sometimes He delays opportunities because the timing is wrong or the hidden consequences are dangerous. You may feel frustrated when doors close unexpectedly, but heaven can see what your emotions cannot. A closed door is not always rejection, it can be rescue. Think about how many people ignored warning signs because something looked exciting in the moment. They rushed into relationships that destroyed their peace, trusted people who betrayed them, or chased opportunities that drained their spirit. The enemy often hides destruction behind temporary pleasure, comfort, or urgency. This is why you must stop making decisions based only on emotions. Pray before you move. Ask God for clarity before you trust people. Not every opportunity is sent to elevate you. Some are designed to distract, delay, or weaken your calling. Pay attention to repeated warnings in your spirit. If something consistently disturbs your peace, creates confusion, or pulls you away from God, do not ignore it. Peace is one of the ways God confirms direction. In this season, God may be separating you from things you desperately wanted because He is protecting your future from hidden damage. Trust His wisdom, even when you do not fully understand the process. Because one trap avoided through obedience can save you from years of pain, regret, and spiritual struggle. Isolation may be part of the preparation. Chosen one of the hardest seasons to understand is the season of isolation. It can feel lonely, confusing, and even painful when people begin disappearing from your life. Invitations become fewer, and you suddenly feel disconnected from environments you once belonged to. But what if this separation is not punishment? What if God is removing distractions because He is preparing you for something greater? Before God elevates many chosen ones, He often separates them first. Isolation is where clarity grows, strength develops, and spiritual sensitivity becomes sharper. Joseph was isolated before he entered the palace. Moses spent years in the wilderness before leading a nation. Even Jesus withdrew into solitude before beginning His ministry. Separation has always been part of spiritual preparation. Sometimes God pulls you away from noise because too many voices around you were drowning out His direction. Constant distractions can weaken discernment and delay purpose. In isolation, God teaches you to depend on Him instead of relying on people for validation, comfort, or identity. This season may also reveal who truly belongs in your life. Some people only stay connected when they benefit from your energy, your kindness, or your resources. When God begins preparing you for elevation, He often removes those who cannot go where you are headed. Not everyone assigned to one chapter is meant to enter the next one. Isolation can also expose hidden wounds inside you. The loneliness may force you to confront fears, insecurities, habits, and emotional pain you previously avoided. Healing often happens in private, before transformation becomes visible publicly. Do not mistake temporary isolation for permanent abandonment. God has not forgotten you. He may simply be building you away from distraction so you can survive the next level of your destiny. Some lessons can only be learned in quiet places. In this season, instead of resisting isolation, use it wisely. Pray more deeply, strengthen your mind, protect your peace, develop your gifts. Because when preparation is complete, the same season that felt lonely will become the foundation for the life God is about to reveal. This is a test of spiritual sensitivity. Chosen one, every season of your life carries a test, and this season may be testing one thing above all else: your ability to recognize the voice of God clearly. In a world filled with noise, distractions, opinions, and confusion, spiritual sensitivity has become one of the most powerful forms of protection. The people who survive spiritually are not always the strongest physically or emotionally. They are the ones who know how to discern when heaven is speaking. God does not always speak through dramatic signs. Sometimes He speaks through conviction, inner peace, repeated warnings, closed doors, dreams, or an unexplainable feeling in your spirit. But if your mind is constantly distracted by negativity, entertainment, fear, or the opinions of others, you may miss the very instruction meant to protect your destiny. This is why the enemy fights so hard for your attention. Distraction is one of his greatest weapons. If he cannot stop your purpose directly, he will keep your mind so busy that you no longer recognize God's direction. Many chosen ones miss divine opportunities because they ignored small spiritual nudges that seemed insignificant at first. Spiritual sensitivity also requires obedience. The more you ignore conviction, the weaker your discernment becomes. Over time, people can become spiritually numb without realizing it. That is why prayer, fasting, reflection, and time alone with God are so important. These things sharpen your ability to hear clearly. You may have noticed recently that your spirit reacts differently around certain people, places, or situations. Pay attention to that. God may be revealing things your eyes cannot yet see. Sometimes your spirit recognizes danger before your mind understands it. This season is teaching you to trust God beyond logic and appearances. Not everything will make sense immediately, but discernment often sees what emotions overlook. Because one moment of spiritual sensitivity can protect you from years of confusion, pain, and regret. And if God is testing your ability to hear Him now, it may be because the next level of your destiny depends on your ability to recognize His voice clearly. One decision can change everything. Chosen one, never underestimate the power of a single decision. One moment of obedience, one act of courage, one choice to listen to God instead of your emotions can completely redirect your future. Many people think destiny is shaped only by huge events, but often the biggest transformations begin with one small decision made at the right time. Throughout the Bible, entire destinies changed because of one choice. Noah decided to obey God and build the ark while others mocked him, and that decision saved his family. Esther chose to speak up at the right moment, and a nation was protected. David chose to face Goliath when others were afraid, and that single moment changed his life forever. One decision opened doors that fear would have kept closed, but the opposite is also true. One wrong decision can create years of pain, delay, confusion, and regret. Many people lose peace because they ignored warnings, trusted the wrong people, or moved without seeking God's direction. A single emotional decision made in weakness can damage relationships, opportunities, and spiritual alignment. This is why the enemy fights so hard to influence your choices. He knows that if he can control your decisions, he can delay your destiny. That is why you must stop making permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. Fear, loneliness, anger, pride, and impatience have destroyed many opportunities that God intended for good. Right now, you may be standing in a moment that feels small, but spiritually it may carry enormous weight. The conversation you entertain, the environment you remain in, the relationship you continue, or the instruction you obey could shape the next chapter of your life. Pray before you move. Listen before you react. Seek discernment before making choices that affect your future, because sometimes the difference between breakthrough and breakdown comes down to one decision. And years from now, you may look back and realize that this very moment was the turning point that changed everything for you forever. God warns the people He still has a purpose for. Chosen one, one of the greatest signs of God's love is His willingness to warn you before destruction arrives. God does not waste correction on people He has abandoned. When heaven continues speaking to you, convicting you, redirecting you, and pulling on your spirit, it is proof that your story is not finished. The warning itself is evidence that God still has a purpose attached to your life. Many people misunderstand divine warnings and see them as punishment, but warnings are actually acts of mercy. God warns because He sees what you cannot see. He understands the traps ahead, the hidden attacks forming around you, and the decisions that could damage your future. His correction is not meant to shame you, it is meant to save you. Think about Jonah. Even after Jonah ran from God's instruction, heaven still pursued him because purpose was still attached to his life. Peter denied Jesus 3 times, yet God still restored him because his assignment was not over. Throughout Scripture, God repeatedly warned, corrected, and redirected people He intended to use greatly. If God were finished with you, there would be no conviction left. The fact that your spirit still feels troubled when you move in the wrong direction is proof that heaven is still fighting for you. Conviction is not rejection, it is protection. In this season, do not ignore the warning signs appearing in your life. God may be trying to protect your peace, your calling, your relationships, your health, or your destiny. Sometimes the discomfort you feel is heaven attempting to redirect you before unnecessary pain enters your life. Instead of resisting correction, thank God for it. There are many people who continue down destructive paths because they no longer recognize his voice. But you are being warned because your future still matters to him. And one day, you may look back at this season and realize the warning you almost ignored was actually the mercy that saved your life, protected your purpose, and positioned you for the destiny God prepared for you from the very beginning. Chosen one, if this message reached you today, do not dismiss it as coincidence. There are moments in life when God speaks softly, and there are moments when he speaks with urgency. This may be one of those moments. The warnings, the shifts, the isolation, the pressure, the strange feeling in your spirit, none of it is happening without reason. Heaven is trying to prepare you, protect you, and position you for what is ahead. Do not ignore what God has been showing you. Some battles are avoided through obedience, some traps are escaped through discernment, and some blessings only appear after you finally listen to the instruction God has been repeating in your spirit for so long. This is not the season to move carelessly. Pray before every major decision, protect your peace, pay attention to the people around you, stay spiritually alert. The enemy attacks what carries purpose, but remember, God would not allow this warning to reach you if your destiny was already lost. You are still chosen, you are still protected, you are still part of God's plan. Years from now, you may look back at this exact moment and realize it was the turning point that saved you from destruction and redirected your entire life. So take this warning seriously, remain close to God, and trust his guidance even when you do not fully understand the path. Because the same God warning you today is also the God preparing to elevate you tomorrow.